I'm a senior in high school, and you know what that means: college applications. I approached them with enthusiasm and vigor. I was excited. And then there's my good friend Bryce. He dreaded it. Contrary to the rest of my friends, it didn't feel right for him. And I understood where he was coming from, and I agreed with him. So you can imagine my surprise when my dad described my college application as the most important thing happening in our family right now. It's a bold statement, and it got me thinking, what makes college so important for me and not for Bryce? Let me take you through the whole thing, starting at the beginning of the application process, standardized tests. The date was February 7th, 2015, a Saturday. I sat at a desk, filling in bubble after bubble as frantically as I could. I was taking the ACT. In the span of just over 4 hours, this test measured everything I had learned over the previous 11 years of my schooling. I was worried. I was worried that if I didn't score well, I wouldn't get into as high caliber a college, which meant I wouldn't get as good a job, which meant I wouldn't be able to provide as well for my future family, which meant, well, you get the picture. I was pretty worried. Normally, an individual hour of my life doesn't feel quite this important, but these felt important down to the minute. I looked it up afterwards. Turns out, the world thinks standardized tests aren't that great a solution. Searching the phrase standardized tests on Google comes up with articles with titles like, standardized tests don't measure educational quality, standardized tests making our students and teachers sick, and confirmed, standardized testing has taken over our schools, but who's to blame? I did find one standardized test that most students haven't heard of. It's called the PISA, or the Program for International Student Assessment. It, and tests like it, are what we use to compare our educational system to others around the world. They're taken seriously by policymakers, but should they be? After all, clearly we don't believe in a national standardized test. What's to say an international one is the solution? The answer is actually pretty simple. It's complicated, or rather, people are complicated. See, the common theme among all those articles was that standardized tests just aren't equipped to measure all the complexities of a student. When we try to simplify the way a student is measured, we simplify the way we view the student. All the places topping the PISA results have a culture emphasizing standardized test scores. Shanghai, which recently placed number 1, is reportedly considering dropping out of the PISA. Why? They want to remove the emphasis on standardized tests that have characterized Chinese education. All this begs the question, were those 4 hours that I spent taking the ACT actually among the most important of my life? Were my worries warranted? Turns out maybe they weren't. So fast forward 6 months to when I actually started my college application, and I wanted to learn more about how they worked. I discovered that some schools, such as Wake Forest University, are test optional, meaning that submitting standardized test scores is not a required part of their application. Instead, they place a much greater emphasis on the holistic review. Holistic review is basically a way for students to better view the complexities of a student. Instead of just looking at the numbers, they also consider essays, recommendation letters, and interviews. It's laudable in theory. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out that way in practice. I found one article written by an ex-Harvard regional representative titled, "Ivy League Admissions Are Sham, Confessions of a Harvard Gatekeeper." In it, they described the interview process as a pageant, not only in the literal sense where people dressed up in all styles of fashion, but also in the rehearsed answers given to the interview questions. I was almost a participant in that pageant. See, my original goal was to get rejected by as many schools as I got accepted to. Not the best policy for my emotional health, granted, but I thought it would be the best policy for my future. My logic was that if I applied to a range of schools and I got rejected by half of them, then the other half would include the best schools that I could possibly get into, right? It's at this point that Bryce enters the picture. Here I am, all excited about applying to these elite schools, and I'm sharing it with Bryce. And he tells me that he's going to be attending Wake Tech, his local community college. And he's excited too, as excited as I am about these elite schools. To give a little background, Bryce isn't a fantastic student. He turns in assignments late, occasionally sleeps in class, doesn't always take notes. However, it's not because he's not capable. He's passionate about learning. He just doesn't do it the way it's done in school. In fact, just the other day, he told me that he was toying with the idea of trying to get all A's at Wake Tech, just to make it more entertaining. He's not engaged, which is a cliche, yes, but an accurate one. Bryce is not the kind of student to apply to Harvard, or any elite college for that matter, and if he did, he wouldn't belong there. It would just be a continuation of the same problem. And so I discovered this. The college application process completely disregards students like Bryce, students who aren't engaged with the system, students who would do well academically if only they had the opportunity to take the right classes. Despite the emphasis that's placed on looking at the whole of a student, it still manages to fall short. The application that can supposedly determine our future successes can't handle one major type of student, students who don't need or want to go to an elite college. After hearing Bryce's perspective, I was able to realize that just because a college is elite doesn't mean it's a good school for me personally. It really all depends on what I want to get out of my higher education and what the schools I'm applying to have to offer towards that. So, if there's one thing you remember from me, it should be this. No one, absolutely no one, is exactly like you. Every single person has different hopes and different dreams. And every single hope and every single dream can be realized in a multitude of ways. Colleges are amazing resources that can change the lives of the people that go there. They're the right choice for a lot of people, but they're not the right choice for all people. It can be difficult to imagine that going to college can be a genuinely bad choice for someone in the current culture, but it can be. People are inherently complex. It's difficult to put ourselves in someone else's shoes. It's nearly impossible. Just remember that nothing can tell you everything there is to know about a person. Not the ACT, not the PISA, not a college application, not a college degree, not a job, not a career, nothing. So, the next time you meet someone whose plan was a little bit different from yours, ask them why. You might be surprised by the answer. Thank you.